Good morning, guys. Welcome to an impromptu Friday episode of Happiness After Codependency. I'm Marshall Berkshire, and if you're new to me, I help codependents rediscover that happiness and that well-being after narcissistic abuse. And so today we're going to be doing an episode I'm calling Personal Power, and specifically this question here. Are others criticizing your choices that don't actually affect them? That's a good signal. So I want to touch on that because it's an empowering and essential aspect coming into what I call personal power, personal sovereignty, being able to make choices and take actions on our behalf that others won't approve of. Is a very essential aspect of being mature and living a life that's really geared towards our individual mutual well-being and happiness in a way that's built on consent and on honesty. So that's what we're going to be jumping into today. Before we do that, I want to share this out with the community. The community is your safe haven here where you can find tools, guidance, support in your journey into your personal power, into your own sovereignty, into your own well-being, beyond codependency, beyond narcissistic abuse. The link's above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. So I'm going to get this shared out here. Boom. And boom. And more boom. There we go. So, yeah, here we be. So, others criticizing your choices that don't actually affect them. This is actually a really positive signal. Because, one, it means you're making choices about you, for you, and your well-being without regard to individuals or other people's points of view that actually aren't directly affected by the choice. See, this is the key here. A lot of times with decisions from codependency, we tend to be very worried about what everybody else thinks. Sometimes we're very concerned about a particular person's point of view as well. And sometimes that point of view has some relevancy, and sometimes it is completely irrelevant. And this really depends on the context in which your choices and actions are taking in or happening within. So, for instance, an example of a situation which can have both of these elements at work so we can understand the context and then discuss it a little deeper. So first of all, let's say I go out and I buy a pink car. So this pink car, my across the street neighbor can't stand it. Just utterly can't stand this pink car. I mean, I'm in love with it. It's just a beautiful pink car. It does its things. It's just magical. But the neighbor's like, no. Person A is just like, I don't want anything to do with this. This is awful. Why would you do that? And they're letting me know this. They're telling this to me. I'm like, cool. This is an example of a choice, an action taken that I do not need to be concerned about the impact with. Okay? Because we have no agreement for me not to buy pink cars, for instance. I have no agreement with them at all. Their point of view is theirs. It's in their yard. Whatever they're going to do with it, they're going to do with it. It's none of my business. My business is how I feel about my choice and about how I manage my yard in this instance. This is a good signal because I have chosen something for myself without regard to another person's point of view that isn't actually relevant to the decision. Very, very important. Now, sometimes we have there are relevant factors we need to consider when making a choice. So in the same example of the pink car, well, if my significant other is allergic to pink and I go buy a pink car, that's a relevant problem. Them being upset about the pink car makes sense because I have a conscious awareness about the impact of this on this person, whom I have a very close proximity to, and that it's going to directly affect them repeatedly. That is something to take very seriously because this would undermine trust, it would undermine understanding and vulnerability. So this is where it becomes relevant that the criticism, the complaint has teeth. It makes sense to receive there. Now, sometimes we make choices and actions that affect people we care about, but their distance from the primary relationship is a little farther. Like maybe they're a best friend, maybe they're a good friend, and maybe you've made the decision to move, for instance, and that hurt. They felt hurt by that because they miss you. They love you. They're sad that they're not going to have more proximity with you. That's where we can apply empathy and understanding and connection and grieve together what's going on there. That is another example of how there's a spectrum of consideration about a choice and an action we take. But for the most part, in codependency, we tend to maximize everyone's opinions equally. We don't treat them based on their proximity to us. We don't treat them based on their proximity to the choice and action and how it actually affects them or doesn't. One thing that I've had to repeatedly learn in my world is that a criticism is going to happen. People will have their points of view, and that's okay because it's none of my business. What my business is understanding the proximity, the context rather, of this decision and its action, and whether or not this feedback I'm receiving is actually something I need to pay attention to. And the way I first determine that is by proximity, by the relationship's proximity to the choice and action I took. And that means the context. So, like for instance, the context with the significant other in the pink car. I have a high relevancy there, and that needs to be understood. I need to take that criticism, that complaint seriously. But the next door neighbor, not so much. Because again, relationship proximity, the context in which it affects the person matters. So this gets us to this point of how being criticized for making a choice that you want in your world is actually a good signal. Because that's one of the biggest challenges we have as codependents, is disappointing someone else. And sometimes we're going to disappoint people we care about by making a choice that matters for us that may indirectly affect them, like the moving example, but that they also get to live with because we're advancing our well-being, our happiness in that decision. This is so critical to our ability to occupy the space of our own personal power and sovereignty, and to find peace and safety in that. Because not all criticism is, one, valid, and two, not all criticism carries the same weight. What gives it weight is the context in which the complaint or criticism is received and your relationship to that individual. So this allows you to tune into the fact that you're making choices for you and not with a direct overriding consideration for other people, unless it does directly influence someone that you have a proximity or relationship with. That needs to be considered. The cool part, though, is this is a positive signal. You can still trust your choices, trust your actions, despite criticism. And it's easier to know what to trust there because you're now discerning it based on the proximity or relationship you have with that person. That sets us up for a lot of success in our world, because then we can do the things that other people will be disappointed in or criticize and still succeed without tearing ourselves down, without doubting ourselves so much, and without automatically or instantly making ourselves the problem. Because we're going to have to do these kinds of things in order to forward our own well-being and happiness. Because it's about us first. It's about yourself first, and then the other individual. And that's really dependent on the relationship and the context of the choice and action that's taking place. This is why it's okay to disappoint people. This is why disappointment in other people or their criticism is a signal that you are choosing you. You're on your side. It's not a signal you've made a mistake or done something wrong. It is a signal that you're choosing something in your behalf rather than what would please them. You're putting yourself first. And that's an act of courage and confidence, especially considering how difficult it has been in the past to do that for yourself. I mean, I remember being paralyzed just trying to make a decision about a cookie. or a candy at the store because I didn't know what they would do, and my sense of safety was contingent on what they said or did or felt. Nowadays, it's just kind of like, I'm a sovereign being. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to stay out of their yard. They'll do whatever they do, and I'll do what I do, and that'll inform me about them and them about me. We're learning about each other in that experience. It brings a lot of freedom, a lot of peace. Because now you're not overanalyzing every choice. You're not in hypervigilance about the outcomes. Instead, you're going, I want to choose this because it brings me a result, an impact, an outcome that I want to live with. That's the magic of understanding that criticism about choices that don't actually affect them is a good signal. It means you're on the path that is yours and that you're respecting your own individuality, your own power, your own well-being, your own happiness. So I just wanted to share that today, guys, because it kind of inspired in me this morning. I really wanted to just get it out there and put it there. So thank you for being here. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And I will see you guys in our next episode next week. Have a safe weekend. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.